Hello and welcome to another episode of Ringside Fracas. I'm your host Naeem, and today I'm joined by Jide. Jide, how are you, bro?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
Yeah, good. I mean, we didn't do an episode last week. It was kind of slow for boxing. There wasn't really much on to watch and much to preview. So it's been a bit slow. A lot of events have been kind of packed into July because obviously you had like stuff like Usyk Dubois, you had from Durazu, you had so many events then, and it's kind of like spread out now a bit more in August. But hopefully, as the months or the weeks are going by, we're getting more and more fights announced, and it's starting to pick up, and there's more to talk about. I mean, we've got so much to talk about this week because we've got such a big fight, especially for the British scene. And let's just get straight into it. We've got Moses Itauma stepping up and taking on Dillian Whyte out in Riyadh. This is an interesting fight to take. I don't think anyone had Dillian Whyte on Moses Itauma's radar in terms of fans, at the start of the year. But here we are. He's taking on Dillian Whyte. Um, quite interesting, quite an interesting fight, especially with Moses Itauma, the big fast rising prospect. Everyone at the start of his career was touting him to try beat Mike Tyson's record, and of course they've abandoned that plan now and they've favoured development for him. But they're touting him to be the next big star. I've never seen even the world has actually gotten behind Moses Itauma in terms of the boxing fans, the hardcore purists. Even they're ranking him as one of the best prospects to see, and they've got hopes that he probably goes on to win world titles in his career. But this is the big step up. He's taking on Dillian Whyte, who's a veteran of the game, seasoned veteran. I mean, he's fought everyone in the division. He's fought, Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Joseph Parker, Povetkin. He's fought the lot. He's gone around the block and he's fought the lot. And he's a dangerous name at his best. But an interesting thing is that, he hasn't been at his best in the last 3 years, especially since the Fury loss out in Wembley. Since then, his career really hasn't gotten back on track, and now he's looking for his chance to get him back on track. He was meant to fight Joe Joyce in April, and then he had to pull out due to injury, and then they just scheduled it to make this fight with Moses Itauma. It's interesting because like we say, Whyte is dangerous, but he's also been inactive. He spent last year having 2 fights against Christian Ham and Ebenezer Tete to get some activity back, and he looked quite poor in both fights. It's not performances that really wow you, will show you that he's back to the kind of the Dillian Whyte of old. But it's this fight has a lot of narrative going into it. There's a lot of implications on the line, especially for Moses Itauma, but also for Dillian Whyte. A loss here would set his career back quite a bit, but a win here would get him up into the title contention because the slope that Itauma's on, that kind of train, that rocket to the top, Whyte has the chance here to take it all. So there's a lot on the line, and it's going to be, like I say, when it comes to fights that are big, but also they have so much drama and narrative involved, it just makes it even that more interesting. Jide, what's your thoughts on this fight being taking place, and what do you think would happen?
Yeah, I'm excited for the fight. I think it's the fight that's needed. Like you said, Talma is rocketing to the top of boxing prospects in general, not just the heavyweight division. He's seen as the future, and Whyte is the perfect litmus test. Was a top contender in his prime, battle hardened in terms of traits. Got very long arms, so it'll be good to see how Moses deals with that. Moses as well has not really had anyone hit him back. I want to see his defense. I want to see how his feinting translates because it's well and good feinting guys that aren't that good, but when you're at the very very top level where guys know what you're gonna do, that you're dropping your right hand feint might not work as well and stuff like that. It would be good to see how he deals with that. I'm not saying Dillian is the most elusive, so it's good for Moses in the terms that he has someone he can actually hit and look good beating. So it's legit the perfect matchup. We get to see hopefully Moses tested a bit more in terms of his defense and um, just how he navigates the ring. But then we also have an opponent where he can look good on and stop. I think it's a brilliant fight. Like I said, I'm obviously laying out the things I'm laying out. Dillian White is not in his prime. He's not been looking good. He's very beatable at this point. His last 2 fights were awful. He's lost a lot of weight, so it's obvious he wants to match Moses for speed, but Dillian has never been a quick guy. He's never had the quickest feet. He's never had the quickest hands. He has an electric left hook, counter left hook. That's just his fastest punch. That punch is electric. But Dillian himself is not that type of fighter. So yeah, I think Moses is gonna beat him, take him mid rounds, take him out. I think we'll get to see because Dylan's got a lot of pride. He's a very prideful guy. He's not just gonna lay down. So we'll see Dylan try to take him out, and I think this is like I said, perfect test. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I'm not going to read too much into Dillian Whyte. Like I said, the name is the name, and that's why Moses is, Team Itauma is taking this fight because, regardless of what you think of how good Dillian Whyte is, he's been one of the bigger UK heavyweight names out there. Obviously, Dubois, Joshua, Fury, and he's up there. He's headlined loads of pay-per-view events. He's sold out arenas, and he's helped sell a stadium out with Tyson Fury. He's one of the big and well-known names in the UK, even though his name has fallen off. And we've got to address, the elephant in the room. Why did his name fall off in the last 3 years? It was because, he had that fight with Tyson Fury where he fought really, really poor. I mean, it was a poor application of IQ. It was a poor game plan. It was not competitive in the slightest, and his resistance looked gone at the same time as well when he got hit with that uppercut. And then after that, he fought Franklin, and look, Franklin, everyone knows, was a tough opponent on paper. I mean, even Anthony Joshua didn't look great with him, but I thought Whyte was on the slide on that fight as well. It just looked like he kept declining in terms of conditioning and his ability to be smart in the ring. Then he has the big fight with AJ, and what happens there? He tests positive. He fails the drug test a week or two before the fight, and he essentially gets pushed out of mainstream boxing. Because once you get that ban, no one's really interested in working. And then last year, before he made his comeback, the Texas Commission somehow managed to say that it was a contaminant, so he was essentially cleared. Again, the details of how it all works is one of the reasons why boxing's kind of a crappy sport, because it's all confusing, convoluted, and it's all like that, so then no one can really track what's happening and where, and that way people can get off the bans and get back into boxing, especially people like Whyte, who brings a lot of money. So I'm not going to ignore that fact that, he essentially didn't serve his ban. So he's back in the mix. And like you said, those two fights, he looked really poor. I mean, Tete's poor, and he looked really poor against Tete. And Tete is someone that even Fraser Clark knocked out in 1 round. That's not someone, you should be going 7 rounds with, and he's hurting you at the same time as well. Like I say, it's for the name value, but is Dillian Whyte an actual top 10 or top 15 opponent? No way. Not in terms of what we've seen in the last 3 fights. He's not a top 10 or top 15 opponent at all. Is he better than Dempsey McKean? Maybe. He'll probably provide a better test at this point in his career than Dempsey has. But I'm not getting carried away that, Whyte's this huge opponent. It's just the name value. That's what it comes down to. And if Itauma does a job on him, it's the optics that matters the most. It's not about actually looking at the context of everything, because, with someone like Moses Itauma, you're not applying context, you're promoting him to also a casual audience. So they're not going to take context, they look at the highlights, they look at what he's done. So if he knocks out Whyte, it'll be great. And like you say, with Itauma, there's a lot to look for, because, his feints are fantastic. His speed is I think he's got some of the fastest hands in the division. If not, he's got the fastest hands in the division. His combinations are blistering. His lead hook is so fluid. Not many heavyweights can see that coming. The way he puts his combinations together is just fluid. There's no force to it. It's not slow. It all comes off very quickly. But he's very patient. He's not one of these just go all out aggressive. When he sees the chance, he's aggressive, but he does take his time. He will go to the body. He will feint. He will level change, and he's looking to break down the opponent. The problem that I see, there are 2 problems that I see with Moses Itauma. Not problems. One of them is not really his fault. The other one, he does have a bit of a fault. So the fault, technically, is he backs up a lot in straight lines. In boxing, it's a sin to do that, because if someone can follow you, if they can keep coming forward, all they have to do is throw a straight punch, and they can still find you going back. And in fact, they can catch you going off balance. And it doesn't have to be the hardest punch, and they'll put you down. And going back in straight lines is never the key. He's he's got to be able to angle off as well. That's what Usyk, if you watch the Usyk Dubois 2 fight, Usyk constantly angling off, and heavyweights can't deal with angling off. And if he can add more of angling off, because he does it a bit, he'd be much more defensively solid on that sense. Because he does get caught, not big or clean. He has been caught in some of his fights, but not anything of note. But I've noticed that he backs up in straight lines, and that's something he's got to, it's a habit, and he's got to try train it out. The other thing is his exposure time. He hasn't really been exposed to many rounds and many minutes. He's been the distance twice against 2 journeymen, and those fights were more to do with his ability to be more crafty and come up with ways to break them down rather than just try and use them brute force. But outside of that, if you look at all his fights, they end within 1 or 2 rounds. And while that's great for the highlights, and it's not his fault they're ending in 1 or 2 rounds, it does pose the idea of what happens when this goes longer. What happens when the opponent provides a bit more resistance than usual. And we still haven't yet to see Itauma. The most resistance we saw was when he fought Dovbychenko. And that fight wasn't really resistance. It was just Dovbychenko resisting to go down. He was a tough, big Ukrainian dude who could take all of Moses' punches. And Moses kind of got tired at the end. Why wouldn't he? He was throwing as many punches, throwing the kitchen sink at him, and he wasn't going down. So he hasn't been exposed to a lot. And the more he keeps going through his career, the more development and time he has in the ring will be key, because he'll be exposed to more. And this is one of those opportunities where he can be exposed to more, because someone like Whyte has seen it all. He's seen, he's done it all. He's been there with everyone. He's dirty boxed. He's fought clean. He's fought he's done everything. And he's going to, I think, whatever you say about Whyte's technical ability, he fights and he's a slugger. He can make it really tough. He can make it dirty with Itauma, and he can bring a different side especially when they're close, that Itauma maybe hasn't seen in the competitive game. Obviously, in sparring it's different, but when you're fighting, it's a completely different animal, especially when things aren't going his way. So we haven't really seen Itauma in a position where things aren't going his way, and he has to adapt or change. And if we don't continue to see it, it's fine, because that's not his fault. He's worked the game plan properly, and as long as he's got it in his locker, then it's fine. But the way I see this fight going, I think Whyte gets stopped inside 6 rounds. I think he puts up a good fight, but like you say, I think he's too slow. He's even slower now as he's older. His conditioning isn't great. Even he's in great shape now. His conditioning has never been great, and so a lot of the times he's leaning over, he's huffing and puffing after 2 or 3 rounds. The punches become labored, and the reason why the punches land is because heavyweight, you can get away with labored. But when you have a young athlete and quick athlete like Moses, it's just you're gonna miss each time he's gonna catch you. And I think as the fight builds, Whyte is gonna try to be a bit more aggressive. Tauma's gonna be more aggressive, but at his own pace. And once he finds the openings, which he'll do, especially with Whyte, who's quite open, his defense isn't good, his guard isn't tight, he'll put Whyte down. And I think he'll drop Whyte multiple times, and then he'll put Whyte away, or someone in the towel will throw it in, or the ref will stop it, or something like that. And Moses Itauma will do a highlight job on Dillian Whyte within 6 rounds. Are you going for that as well? Knockout inside how many rounds?
Yeah, 6, 7 rounds max.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's gonna do a job on him, like you said. And also, I feel like the times when Whyte was very good in terms of his conditioning he was on drugs. Like you said, like, just have to be honest. The guy's been juicing all his career. Most of these guys juice. It is what it is. But yeah, so I feel like Whyte gets stopped. It's gonna be a good fight, but Whyte gets stopped.
Yeah, I don't think there's any. I think most people are picking Moses Itauma, and why wouldn't you? It makes all the sense. Although there is that question of what happens when he does get tested. What happens when if Dillian Whyte does land that left hook? There's always those questions, and especially when you're a young prospect who hasn't been exposed to a lot, those questions will be asked of you, especially as you're going as high as someone Moses Itauma seems like he's going. Big implications for this fight, because I genuinely think if he beats Whyte and he knocks him out and he looks fantastic knocking out Whyte, I think Frank Warren will take off the handbrake and he might just chase Joseph Parker next. Do I think that's a wise choice for Moses Itauma? I think he can beat Parker, not next though. I think it's quite key for Moses Itauma to actually still keep going through the ring and actually getting him, a top 20 contender that will provide some resistance, and that will rather than jumping from Whyte to Parker. But we also have to look at the commercial route, and if they've put him in with Parker in like December or something, who's that's a big statement to make, and the public, the British public, are going to be watching that. Like, damn, if this guy beats Joseph Parker in however many fights he's got, I think it would be his 14th fight. What a fantastic fighter he is, and they then promote the Usyk fight for next year, and I think that's a step too far. But we don't know. The one big question about Moses Itauma is we don't know where the ceiling really is. We're trying to find that out, and that's what these fights are here for. But yeah, good fight. I can't wait for it. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be violent. Both guys are violent. It's just how they are. And they're going to bring it. I think Whyte will try to play mind games beforehand to try get into Itauma's head. But I think Itauma's one of those guys where nothing really phases him. He doesn't register it. He just keeps going to fight. But it's going to be fun, man. I can't wait. It's a good headliner. It's a shame it's in Saudi. It should really be in the UK at the O2. I mean, you want to make Moses Itauma a British star, you put these fights on in the O2, so his whole fan base, in London can go out to see him, and he keep growing, and people keep talking about it. So it's a shame that they didn't do that. But yeah, what in your estimation, Jide, what would you say is obviously we need to see after this fight, but what would you say is the ceiling? If you had to estimate, what would the ceiling be for Moses Itauma?
The ceiling, based on what we've seen, is undisputed champion. He can usher in this new era of fighters. That is his ceiling. His floor is world champion. That's how good I think he is.
Yeah, fair enough. I agree. I think, based on what he's shown, I've not seen someone as destructive as him. I've not seen many heavyweights as destructive. Even you had Edgar Berlanga, who had the 16 first-round knockouts. But if you look at the opponents and you compare the opponents to, for example, Moses Itauma, Itauma's opponents are much better on the level.
Yeah. I also feel like with him, that's why I just want to see him get hit. Like, because especially that walking back in straight line floors, that is a death wish against Usyk. Again, I think because he's faster than Usyk right now, because Usyk's 38 years old. So he's faster than Usyk. He's younger. Like, obviously, I'm not doing a turkey and saying, oh, yeah, I'll put him in with Usyk right now. But if Usyk's going to fuck around and keep fighting or whatnot, I truly believe this will be the best. Him and Caballero, I feel like, will give Usyk the best challenge. Because I don't think Usyk's fought someone faster than him since Bradis. So you're going to get a guy who's got faster hands. We don't know feet because Moses doesn't move around as much, but 100% faster hands. Probably have an engine on him because he's a young man. He's literally in his early 20s.
He's 20.
He's 20 years old. He hits probably harder, if not just as hard. He's also a southpaw. So I think, yeah, this will be the guy to put Usyk in with. But I'm not saying he's ready. Like he said, he has some big flaws. He irons those out, and Usyk decides to stay around for a bit too long. He could be the guy to beat him. So,
see, I get the sentiment when people want to push him forward and rush him to the top, because it seems like he's got what it takes, and he's just keeps blowing by the opposition. But like I said, he's 20. I mean, this is a kid who, a fighter who, if you do the right fights and he fights the way he should, and he doesn't get into wars essentially, and he does protect himself quite a bit, he could be fighting for the next 20 years at a top level. He could be fighting till he's 40, especially at heavyweight. You can fight till you're 40 and still be at a top level, because the athleticism and the technical level diminish, but it diminishes for everyone, so it doesn't really matter. It's not that big of a gap. Now this is a kid who, like I say, could be around for 20 years, and you could have literally a 15-year reign if you wanted to, which would be insane. But he could do that if he wanted to. So it's not like you have to rush him, because one of the problems with rushing him is you could put him in the Usyk next, and Usyk could absolutely ruin him. We've seen it multiple times where prospects have been put in too quickly and too early in their career with someone they shouldn't be in with, and it derails their career. They don't get to where they should be because that fight completely messed them up. Sometimes it's not even. Sometimes it's a case of they're put in a fight that is a decent fight, but it's a bit of a step up, and they still lose, and it derails their fight. I mean, look at David Price. He was heavyweight prospect of the year. Had that fight with, I think it was Tony Thompson, and got knocked out twice and never came back the same. He was, that was a guy who everyone looked at and was like, damn, he's going to win world titles. He beat Tyson Fury in the amateurs. He'll probably do it again in the pros. And it all just fell apart for him. We've seen it where prospects just fall apart at the seams and they can never really be what we expect them to be because you've pushed the level. Look at Jared Anderson. I mean, before the Bukoli fight, there were issues in terms of his mentality where people were talking about, but he looked good. And then you put him in with Bukoli and it destroys him completely to the point where I don't think he's going to recover his career since then.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I don't want a situation where he's too rushed. I'm just saying, I'm not saying put him in with Usyk now. I'm just saying one thing about me is, if you get to that level, you can't start being treated with kiddie gloves. Like, you can't. So my thing is, cool. You're now saying you're at the top 5 prospects. You're fighting for world champions. You're doing all that stuff, bro. You gotta get cracking, bro. So if you decide to stay around, you fight Usyk, boy. That's you can't now say you're not ready. That's why when Joshua was younger, when people say he was being rushed, that's true. It was being rushed. But the moment he beat Charles Martin, that's it. You can't now say you want to be developed. They shouldn't rush you. So him and his team need to decide: should they keep him like on a leash for another 2 years or let him go? Because the moment they let him go, there's no longer we're rushing him. The moment you're a top 1, top 2 contender, you have to be looking at the U6. You have to be. So I completely agree with you, but it's up to his people what they're doing with him. So if they're gonna keep pushing him, then yeah, they gotta get ready.
Yeah. I mean, my personal opinion is people won't like it because it's kind of a step down in terms of names, but I think he should go for British names like Sol Dakers. He should go for British names like David Adeleye. Even if David Adeleye loses to Hrgovic, fight Adeleye. The winner of Fraser Clark and Jamie TKV for the British title. Like, the reason I say this is because he's much better than those guys.
Yeah.
It just gives him the time to fight guys who are going to come at him. They're going to try to beat the crap out of him because they want to take what he has.
Yeah.
And it gives him that kind of edge because these are rivals. They're not just random names off of random journeymen. They are rivals. They are people who want what he has. And because it'll be in Britain, you keep building his name against these British guys. Because whenever you do British events and their rivalries, they have more of a they have more traction than other fights would.
Yeah,
in Britain.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. But yeah, I mean, I can't wait for that fight. And like I said, it'll tell us a lot about Moses Itauma, and it might not tell us a lot about Moses Itauma because we still need to see where Dillian Whyte is in terms of his ability. So it's an interesting one.
I think a good fight for him would be like a Philip Hrgovic, if you're trying to rush him to the top level.
Yeah,
because a durable guy who doesn't move his head that much, so you'll hit him a lot. But it's also a guy who's going to throw a lot of punches, who's accurate, and do you know what I mean? So that will let you know. That is like a perfect litmus test. But yeah.
Yeah, or at some point, Derek Chisora.
Yeah, or D-Boy, yeah.
Because he's on a roll right now, and you could really do something there. I think that's possible. I think that's possible. He could fight Chisora after this one.
Yeah.
But on the undercard, we've also got Philip Hrgovic returning to the ring to fight David Adeleye. Interesting that these two fought on the same card in April when Hrgovic stepped in for Dillian Whyte to fight Joe Joyce on 2 weeks' notice, and David Adeleye, of course, fought Jamie TKV. I'll go into Hrgovic first. He beat Joe Joyce. I mean, off of 2 weeks' notice, he didn't have a full camp, anything like that. He just came in for. He looked sluggish, slow at the start, and then he managed to use his volume, use his accuracy, and start to control the later rounds, and he won the fight. And it was a bit competitive, but it was a main, towards the middle and the end, it was all Philip Hrgovic. I can't really knock him for that performance because he was slow. He doesn't move his head. A lot of his punches are quite slow and looping and whatnot. But he was on 2 weeks' notice. Like, it wasn't a fight he was expecting to take. It wasn't a fight he was getting ready for. He just got ready, showed up, and he won. This time he's got a full camp. He's technically better than Adeleye. He's much smarter than Adeleye. He probably hits not explosively as hard, but he's got more thudding power than Adeleye. he's a better boxer. Like he's just a better boxer. And I think now he has a full camp. You'll see him be a bit more quicker with his movement. Not obviously, he's not going to be like the Flash with his movement, but he's going to be a bit quicker than he was against Joe Joyce. But also more confidence in him to go and take this, because a lot of his confidence was taken when he lost to Dubois, because he expected to knock out Dubois in 5 rounds. He only trained for 5 rounds, and the gas tank really just went off a hill, and he got stopped on cuts because he couldn't move out of the way of Dubois' punches. Yeah, he's big, he's stiff, but he can punch. He's not great to watch sometimes, and sometimes a lot of his punches are quite sneaky. They're over the top, sometimes towards the back of the head, sometimes underneath. But he's a competent boxer, and at his best, he's probably a top 10 fighter. And I think we're going to see him again at his best because he's solid. Like, he's got a chin on him. He can stay in there. I mean, Daniel Dubois is a heavy puncher. We know that. We saw that against Anthony Joshua. Dubois stopped him on cuts. He didn't knock him down or anything like that or wobbled him at any point. He stopped him just purely through the cuts on his face, and the doctor deciding no point carrying on. And Hrgovic basically gave up as well because he knew he wasn't going to win it. Adeleye fought Jamie TKV. So Adeleye has had an interesting year. He fought Sol Dacres and knocked him out in 1 round with one big left hook, but then he fought Jamie TKV. And a bit controversial if you did watch that one, where the referee seemingly calls breaks. So Jamie puts his hands down and tries to move from Adeleye, and Adeleye just throws a left hook and basically knocks him out. And there's controversy behind that. The build-up in terms of what happened before that fight, Adeleye is weird because he's quite athletic, he's strong, and he can punch, but he doesn't have a brain on him. He's quite like he's lucky. He's good that boxing worked out for him, because I can't see any other normal job working out well for him. He's not that smart. He waits too often to land that big punch, and I think that Sol Dacres knockout makes him more confident that he can land these big punches to knock people out, and he can knock people out. But if you're relying too much on those one punches to knock people out, chances are you're not going to get it, and that's what was happening against Jamie TKV until the referee made that error. Hrgovic doesn't move his head a lot, so Adeleye, I think, will have moments where he lands. But does Adeleye really punch heavy enough to knock out and knock down Hrgovic, who hasn't been knocked out or knocked down in his career, especially fighting guys like Zhang, Joyce, fight Dubois. He's fought heavy punches, and he's taken their punches. No, I personally don't think so. And I think Adelaye's, as the fight goes on, he'll be aggressive early on, but as the fight goes on, Hrgovic will just be too accurate and too smart. And he'll end up dominating Adeleye towards the later rounds. And I don't think Hrgovic is an explosive puncher enough to knock down Adeleye, but I think through volume and accuracy, he might be able to stop him. But I think Hrgovic gets a wide unanimous decision. You see there's a big gap between where Adeleye is, which is around British level, and where Hrgovic is, which is around world fringe, which is around just above European, around world level. What's your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I pretty much echo everything you say. Adeleye, man, I get brought up, but the guy's not good, man. Boxing IQ can't teach. When I say he's not good, this is relative, by the way. World level to different level, man. I think he, like I said, he pushes it too much. He overthinks. Someone like him, he has to fight with these things. Adeleye needs to be taught not to think when he fights. So maybe Adam Booth is a good match for him. I'm not saying Adam Booth trains guys that don't think, but he encourages guys to just explode, just go in sports like where they dally around the outside, they see an opportunity, they just attack. Not that much freedom. But if he's trying to do this testing and trying to set you up for shit, that's not Adeleye, man. That's not Adeleye, and that's where I feel like he's going to struggle. So, yeah, I think Hrgovic is just going to beat him, man. He's going to whoop his ass. I see Duke McKenzie thinks that Adeleye is going to beat him. I just don't. Hrgovic got chin of iron. And when it comes to gas tank, he's got better gas tank than Adeleye, funny enough. So, yeah, he's a better boxer, better IQ, more, just it's better than him. Bigger than him, it's just better than him. So, yeah, I see it. I see Hrgovic probably stopping him late. Or UD.
I think the one thing about Hrgovic is his intensity isn't that high, so he's not like a really aggressive, or when the punches need to be thrown and flown, he's not doing it, which gives Adeleye shots to land and be more aggressive. But yeah, I can't. he's just not smart enough to put a lot of the things together. I haven't seen in his career where he can really put a game plan well together. I mean, even the Dakers fight, that was a big left hook, but Dakers was poor as well defensively with that. And like you say, Hrgovic is strong, he's smarter. I mean, Hrgovic is probably going to beat him in almost every department other than maybe speed. That's it. So yeah, I think Hrgovic dominates this by outboxing him completely. Does he? Yeah, I think he could. Like, I agree with you. I think he could get a late stoppage or wide decision. I think it depends on how intense Hrgovic will get in the later rounds. But that's another good fight to watch. I think it's good in the sense of it's a I think it's kind of mismatched, but because it's heavyweight, Adeleye has his chance. But I just don't think it's much of a big chance anyway. And the next fight on the agenda is Nick Ball defending his WBA featherweight title against Sam Goodman. So this is Nick Ball's third super bantamweight that he's pulled up to featherweight to defend his title against. How this is taking place, I have no clue. I mean, Sam Goodman has not had a featherweight fight in such a while. He was meant to fight Inoue this year, and he pulled out because of injury. And before that, he fought TJ Doheny. Before that, he fought Ronnie Rios. All of them super bantamweights. So I'm not sure what the kind of goal is here, but I mean, he's not fighting featherweights anymore. I think the end goal for Nick Ball has and always will be the Inoue fight. I think this is part of one step of the way of getting there, of taking on the Inoue names like Doheny, like Goodman, and also because they're super bantamweights and bringing them up to featherweight, he gets used to what they'll be like. Nick Ball is the only current male UK world champion. I want everyone to take that fact in, that he's the only current male UK world champion in boxing. We only have one, and that's Nick Ball. It shows you how far we've fallen as a country. That's a depressing stat. But with Nick Ball, he is aggressive. He's too aggressive. In fact, in his fight against Doheny, his last fight, he should have got disqualified because he kicked Doheny after the belt. And he was doing all sorts. He pushed him, punched him after the belt. He was doing so. He should have got disqualified. If he wasn't the A side, he definitely would have got disqualified. He should have lost his title there and then. So he would have had 0. He's too aggressive, I think, in terms of his emotions, especially when he's not getting his own way. He's very aggressive as a fighter. He's quite strong. He's got an engine on him, and he's quite muscle bound, and he's small. But he's built like a tank. He just keeps coming forward. He mixes up the combinations well. He can go to both head and body, and he's relentless with his pressure. It might not be the most smart and calculated pressure, but it's relentless, and that's what gives him an edge in most of his fights. And that's why a lot of his fights seem quite close because of his work rate. Sam Goodman's a boxer. He boxes quite a bit. He's not a big puncher at all, not a super bantamweight at least. He's your bog standard boxer at a top level. I think like he's a world level super bantamweight. You can really hang with the bottom top 10. But you put him against any elite fighter, any top fighter like Inoue, for example, who can also punch. I think you just see him fall apart. He's quite defensively liable. He can be caught standing in between punches and caught right in the middle of them, going back in straight lines. Because his punch power isn't that much, it affords the other opponent to keep coming forward and keep landing until they do. And he has to work really hard in order to win fights. I think Goodman was waiting for that Inoue payday for a while because he postponed that fight, I think, like 3 times now, 4 times. And that's a big payday you're turning down because that's millions on the line. And now he got this chance to fight in Riyadh season for a world title against Nick Ball. He obviously couldn't say no to it. But I just think it's too much for him. It'll be a big step up to featherweight and against a big stocky dude he's bigger than, he's 5'6", Goodman, and Ball is 5'2", but Ball is a proper featherweight. He's built like a tank. I think that physicality, the punching power will be too much. And I think Nick Ball dominates Goodman, probably beats him down, but I don't think he stops him. Because the one thing about Nick Ball, I'll say, while he's got power, he's not the most efficient finisher. Like, he's relentless with his pressure and he can punch quite hard, but he's not the most efficient finisher. And I think here he could drop Goodman. I do wonder if he can stop him. I'm not going to bet on it. If I was a betting man, I don't bet, by the way. But I think he could definitely put a beating on Goodman and really take the rounds. What's your thoughts on Nick Ball and also the fact that he's the only UK world champion that we have?
We have fallen off, man. I like Nick Ball. I think
reconnect to the thing because your mic is in and out. Can you hear me? Just reconnect quickly and then we'll get you back because I think your mic and your internet's lagging a bit. Hello? All right, we'll come back once he's reconnected. Can you hear me? All right, disconnect and then come back. Okay. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay, while he's sorting that out, I'll just... So, I mean, Julie, can you hear me? Can't hear anything. Okay, so yeah, as Julie was saying, he's... Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I don't know what the hell what happened, but yeah, I was gonna say, while I like Nick Ball, I thought Raymond Ford beat him, but it was a close fight. I like Nick Ball, relentless pressure, he's entertaining to watch, all that good stuff. But the fact he's our only world champion shows how far we've fallen off. I think 2016 we had the most amount of world champions like in our history.
Like 16. Oh, I think we lost you there. All right, while Jide sorts that out, as he said, we had 16 world champions, British world champions back in, I think it was like 2016, 2015. And now we only have one. I mean, I know cycles come and go, eras come and go, and you have high points and low points all the time, and it's sport, but it's quite far low that we've come, and one when it's potentially could be zero is not something that's quite good for the sport, for the country even. We've fallen quite a bit. I mean, we used to have world title fights almost like twice or three times a month just in this country. Twice a month at least in this country. You used to have guys like Josh Warrington, Lee Wood, Joe Cordina. You just have random guys just not random, but headlining events and month after month. You used to have so many world title fights coming. You used to have guys like Errol Spence come here, Usyk came here. You have Beterbiev come here. You had Bivol come here. You had so many of the top world. Inoue even came to the UK when he fought in Scotland. You had so many of the top guys come to the UK because we're such a big proponent of boxing. It was such a golden age for us, and it's kind of slowed down a bit when it comes to how successful we really are. You back? Jide, you back?
I'm back. Did you hear anything I said?
No, so go for it.
I'm so dead. The way I was just talking, Jesus Christ, what the hell? But
It
anyway,
just cuts out. Yeah.
but yeah, I said like I like Nick Ball. I'm a fan, but it's terrible how he's our only representation at the world level. I feel like Raymond Ford beat him, but that's a different conversation. Um, yeah, we need. I said it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like a steals sharpens steals. It's a positive cycle where we have world champions. Kids see that what those world champions and they want to become world champions. The likes of Moses Itauma probably watched Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury. It's like I can do this shit. So we need guys doing well at the world level to encourage more kids to be fighters because we're gonna get to a point where we're not gonna have enough fighters. It's gonna be like America. I don't want to see us become. Obviously, America's got fighters, but I don't want the downfall of British boxing to get to the stage where we just have scrubs like how it was in was it 2008 maybe, where we only had really David Hay, Carl Froch was coming through. Obviously, Amir Khan was around, but it was going through his little slump. Like there was a point in British boxing before Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, and all these guys where it was really slim pickings, and I feel like we're getting back to that. But yeah, man, Sam Goodman just doesn't hit hard enough. Can't keep Nick Ball off of him. He's a tad little boxer, but I see Nick Ball swarming him and stopping him on sheer just sheer volume. Like he's just gonna force the referee to do something. It's not gonna hurt him and stop him like that, but he's just gonna swarm him.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be too much for Goodman. But the one thing I will say is, if Nick Ball loses his shit again like he did against Doheny, disqualify him. Like, you can't get away with kicking someone in the middle of a boxing fight just because he had you in a headlock, like, or punching him after the bell again, like in the same fight. Like, if he tries this shit again, he should be disqualified. Like, he can't get away with being a petulant child, and that was one of the biggest takeaways from that. That fight was, he's just a petulant child at times, and it's not a good representation. And people look at that and they go, well, what the hell is this? Like, why the hell is he able to get away with this? So yeah, but that, I wouldn't say it's a good fight. I think it's a mismatch, that one. It's just Goodman stepping up to world level, but not at his division, at a higher division. He's just going to get run over. Another fight, though, we mentioned him, Ray Ford. He's on the card as well. He was meant to fight Anthony Kakachi, but Kakachi pulled out due to injury. Now he's fighting Abraham Nova. Jide, what's your thoughts on Ford? Obviously, he's in this new division at 130, and he's kind of acclimatizing to it, and he's taking these many fights to acclimatize. What do you think he can do with this division, and where does his ceiling lie? He's 26.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's just like a bit croaky, but go on.
Yeah, Ford, I think he's a good fighter. I don't think he's one of the elite American talents. And when I say elite, I mean like even though I hate his guts, Javante Davis. I don't think he's Shakur Stevenson, Keyshawn Davis, another idiot. I don't think he's that, but I think he's very good. I don't think he's an Abdullah Mason, but I think he's very good. I think he's good enough to have good fights in his division. I think he's good enough to be world champion in this division. But I like him. I like his style. Like I remember before he won his world title, a lot of people were looking at him as he's boring or he's just an opponent. But bro, the guy's got dog in him. You know what I mean? He knows how to mix it. So I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Ford, especially the Nick Ball fight made me a fan. That was such a fight, but that could have just been Nick Ball made that fight what it was. You know what I mean? So I think he's a tidy boxer. He's good. He's athletically good, good speed, decent power. He can box. He's a decent fighter, but again, I feel like he's good. I don't see him as a prime elite fighter, but I see him as a very good fighter. A fighter that can give anyone problems and can beat anyone on his day. But yeah, that's how I see him.
Yeah, I agree. I think with Ford, he's a top quality fighter. He's been in 2 top quality fights against Otabek Komotov and obviously Nick Ball. The Komotov fight was brilliant because he was losing that fight. And then in the 12th, and it was war up until the 12 rounds. And then 12th round really stuck on Komotov and stopped him. And that was like the clutch gene you needed to see come out for him to win his world title, his first world title. And then, like you say, the guts he showed to deal with the pressure of Nick Ball. But he also looked so handily in the ring against him. He looked very sharp, very switched on. Although the pressure is quite hard to deal with, and he obviously did lose that fight. I thought I had him winning that one. But he showed a lot of dog and a lot of technical ability. And he's been showing that in his 130 run, or 130 pounds run. And this is another notch. Again, Abraham Nova is not a great opponent, but it's a short notice. What do you do? But someone like
I feel like the Kakache fight would have been perfect because Kakache comes to fight. And
the problem is though, Kakache dropped the belt and then he's fighting Ray Ford. I never understood that, why he dropped the IBF belt, because he didn't want to fight Sugar Nunes, but then he's fighting Ray Ford anyway in Riyadh at the same weight class. But you're right, in terms of fights, as fights go, it would have been fun. But yeah, with Ray, I think Abraham Nova is not going to be someone that's going to show us anything different from what we've seen. I think Ray has shown, even when he stepped up to 130, he's technically above most of these guys. He has to get to the world level and fight these guys. You know, you've got guys like Jazza Dickens, who's holding the WBA regular title, which will get upgraded because obviously Lamont Roach is busy with Javante Davis. You've got Sugar Nunes, who has the IBF title. Who else is at 130? You've got Oshaki Foster at 130, but it's, again, no one really knows what Oshaki's going to really do. So those are the top names that we really want to see Ray Ford fight at that weight class. So I think here it's just another case of him just showing his ability and showcasing his technical prowess and how much better he is than most of these lower level guys. And eventually they're going to step him up to a world title fight and we'll see the best of him. But he's fun to watch. He's not the biggest power puncher, but he's very sharp. And sometimes when you're watching that sharpness, it's always clean and it's interesting to keep watching that. So it'll be a good fight. I think he's going to win by clear decision. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But yeah. And then the last fight that we talk about is Hayato Tsutsumi versus Kaisa Shfak. Now, Hayato Tsutsumi is basically a Japanese amateur boxer who's been around the scene in the amateurs and done really well, and they really rate him. And he came to the pro level. He's only 7-0, but he's beaten some top level guys at 130 pounds. Essentially, he's one of those boxers that you think can get fast tracked. And that's what they're thinking about doing with him, is fast tracking him towards the top, because he's actually a decent fighter. He's got such good technical ability. His pressure is really good. It's not too aggressive. He finds the counters when he needs to. He can box on all fronts. It's just about getting him the level of opponents and fighting well. But the fact that Turkey, I'm surprised, has put money into both Hayato and his brother Reito Tsutsumi, and is promoting them on ring cards and these Saudi cards, is interesting. I think he sees something there that they can become world champions, and especially like we were talking about Ray Ford, the 130 division, they're up for grabs. You got these top names, but they're not invincible names, they're not elite names, they're good names. And I think Hayato Tsutsumi is someone who has the potential to become a world title challenger. Ashfaq is someone, if you don't remember, he was with the Joshua Buatsi squad of Olympics in the Rio Olympics, went out in the first round. Matchroom quickly snatched him up after that, as they wanted to snatch up most of the Olympians then. Also, he was brown as well, so they thought that could sell. He kind of got to a domestic level and he got taken apart. This is a complete mismatch. You've got a young fighter like Tsutsumi who is on the rise towards world title level. You're looking at him to pit him against, the world title challengers and the world title and the world champions. And you've got a guy in Kaisa Shfak who falls apart at the domestic level. It's a complete mismatch. And I think Tsutsumi is going to do a demolition job on Ashfaq. And the only reason I see Team Ashfaq taking this fight is because of the fact that they're going to get money for it. Outside of it, Ashfaq doesn't win. This is not a fight that Ashfaq can win. He's outgunned, he's outmatched, he's going to get outworked, everything. On all fronts, he's outmatched. It's a real mismatch. I'm surprised they made this fight. It might get bad. It might get seriously bad if we're not careful here. Jide, you heard anything about Tsutsumi, or you're going to be interested now in watching him? You're muted. Hello? If you're speaking, it's not coming through. Oh, yeah. So yeah, Tsutsumi is someone to watch out for. His brother, also Reito Tsutsumi, is another top quality amateur Japanese boxer who's come through. He's also someone to watch for because they're pro as well. Can you?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect. What do you think about this Tsutsumi guy now? The way I've described him.
No, it sounds like it sounds good. Based on how you described it, I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know much about the Japanese fighters coming through.
Your mic's cutting in and out.
Wait, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, just slightly. Go on.
Yeah. I was gonna say I don't know much about the Japanese fighters coming through the amateur scene, but based on how you described him, with Turkey investing in him, must be a good fighter. I'm gonna watch him. I feel like I'm at the stage where I need to start seeing more of the new crop coming through. We're at the end of this cycle, so I need to who can herald the new era. Because we're literally at the cusp of it, right? So Usyk, Inoue, all these guys retire. They're gonna retire soon. So we need to see the new talent. So yeah, I'm gonna tune into that one.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity for someone like Tsutsumi to get his name more out there towards. The Japanese guys really know him, but the international audience, especially, it's a perfect platform. And if he does a job, people are going to be like, "Oh, I want to watch this guy. I want to see what more he can do." It's an okay card. It's got some names on it, and I'm going to be interested in watching it from start to finish. So it's good that boxing's back in a big way. That we're getting the fights again. we've got some announcements in terms of, you have Eubank Ben 2 in November, which we'll discuss in proper detail in the coming episodes. You've also got Spence Crawford in September. You've got the Night of Champions card, which we need to discuss with obviously Benavidez Yard, Better Biev being on the undercard, and obviously the Bivol fight seemingly falling apart. We need to discuss that in detail. We've got so much to talk about, so we're gonna keep pumping out the episodes, even if there's not a boxing card to talk about. There's news to talk about. There's stuff we've got to get our say on. So make sure to keep tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe, and always let us know your thoughts in the comments. We want to know what you want to hear, what you think of certain things. We want to get your takes all the time, and please keep joining us on this journey as we keep talking all things boxing. And we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.
Peace.